I always believed that pain makes you stronger, but the truth is, pain doesn't strengthen you, it reshapes you. It burns you down to ashes and then whispers, now rebuild. My name is Selena Wraith, and this is the story of how I died without dying and how I turned that death into revenge. I was 27 when the world I built with love and trust collapsed overnight. For years, I worked as a financial consultant in Manhattan, a woman who played by the rules, who believed loyalty still existed. My fiancé, Ryan Hale, was everything I ever wanted: charming, ambitious, confident. We were the power couple people envied, but behind those smiles he was building an empire on my name, my money, and my blind trust. It started with small things: strange late night calls, unexplained trips, a sudden change in passwords. I told myself he was just stressed. I told myself he still loved me, until one night I opened a message meant for someone else, a woman named Clara Vaughn. It's almost done. Once her account transfers are cleared, we'll have it all. Then we disappear. I love you. My heart stopped, the words blurred. I sat frozen, staring at the screen, as if I could rewrite what I saw. But no, this was real. Ryan, the man who promised forever, was stealing everything from me with someone else. Within 2 weeks, my accounts were emptied. My company shares sold, and Ryan gone. He vanished, leaving me with debts, legal notices, and a hollow apartment echoing with betrayal. People whispered, colleagues avoided me. I became that woman, the fool who lost everything to love. For months, I lived like a ghost, until one cold November night, sitting alone in a cheap motel, I saw my reflection in the cracked mirror, and I didn't recognize the woman staring back. Her eyes weren't broken anymore. They were burning. That was the night Selena Wraith died, and something darker was born. I started to dig. Every connection, every business Ryan touched, every fake document he forged, I traced them. Nights turned into months, coffee turned into obsession. That's when I found Clara, the woman who helped destroy me. She wasn't just his lover, she was his partner in fraud. Together, they had started a new company in Chicago under false identities, using my stolen credentials. So I packed a single bag, dyed my hair black, and drove to Chicago. I got a job there under a new name, Mira Cole, data analyst. My first assignment, the same building where Ryan and Clara's new firm was operating. They didn't recognize me, not yet, but I recognized every lie in their smiles. And as I stood in that elevator with Ryan for the first time in a year, his eyes meeting mine without knowing who I was, I whispered silently to myself, "You took everything from me. Now I'll take your peace." And that was the beginning of my revenge. It's strange how the world forgets faces so easily. All I needed was a change of hair color, darker lenses, and a colder smile, and suddenly, I was no longer the broken woman Ryan Hale had abandoned. I was Mira Cole, quiet, efficient, invisible. I joined Hale and Vaughn Enterprises under their new shell identity, pretending to be a data analyst, when in truth, I was the ghost they thought they buried. Every morning, I'd walk through those glass doors, my heels echoing against marble, my heart steady like a metronome of vengeance. Ryan passed me several times that first week. His eyes lingered just a second too long, perhaps, at the faint familiarity in my expression. But he didn't recognize me. That was my first victory. I studied their company from within. Every transaction, every falsified record, every bribe buried under corporate jargon, I knew it all. But revenge isn't chaos. It's a symphony, and I intended to compose it perfectly. One evening, while the city lights flickered beyond the 30th floor, I found Clara Vaughn in the break room. Her laughter hadn't changed that same brittle sound that once haunted my dreams. I pretended to spill my coffee, and she smiled politely. "Rough night?" she asked. "You could say that." I replied, forcing a grin. We talked small, harmless talk until she asked about my past. I lied beautifully. "My ex-fiancé left me for another woman," I said, my voice trembling just enough, "but I guess that's life." She gave a sympathetic smile, not realizing she was the other woman. That night, I went home and stared at the mirror, the one cracked edge still reflecting two faces, Selena and Mira. One was calm, the other furious. I whispered to both, he won't see it coming. Days turned into weeks, and I became indispensable at Hale and Vaughn. I handled their internal accounts, my territory. Slowly, I began rerouting their money, just small amounts at first through shell subsidiaries, offshore shadows. Ryan started noticing discrepancies. He stormed into the finance department one afternoon, furious. Who handled this report? I looked up calmly. I did, Mr. Hale. Is there a problem? His eyes flickered with suspicion and something else. Curiosity. That night, he called me into his office. You're new here, right? He said, pouring himself a drink. Yes, 6 months, I replied. You're good, sharp. I could use someone like you in upper management. His words made my stomach twist. The irony, the man who destroyed my career now offering me a promotion. I leaned forward, feigning intrigue. I'm flattered. He smiled the same smile that once made me fall in love. But this time, it felt like venom. Clara grew colder toward me over time. Maybe she sensed something. Maybe it was guilt. But one Friday evening, as I stayed late reviewing audit trails, I found her secret an encrypted folder named Legacy Files. It contained fake passports, foreign accounts, and a plan to leave Ryan. She was planning to betray him just like they betrayed me. That night, I made my choice. I wouldn't just destroy Ryan. I'd let them destroy each other and then finish what was left. The following week, I set my final trap. I created a hidden report, an anonymous whistleblower complaint, linking Ryan to a massive embezzlement scheme. It would be sent to federal regulators, but first, I needed chaos inside the company. I started whispering small truths to Clara during coffee breaks. You know, Ryan's been making deals behind your back. I said one day, pretending to look away nervously. You didn't hear it from me. Her expression tightened. Within days, she was going through his office files. At the same time, I made sure Ryan found traces of Clara's secret accounts. He did, and the explosion came faster than I expected. Monday, 9:00 a.m. The boardroom, their argument was loud enough for the entire floor to hear. You think you can outsmart me, Clara? Ryan shouted. I learned from the best. She snapped back. I watched from a distance, pretending to type reports as their empire began to crumble in public. By noon, Clara was gone, her accounts frozen. By 3 p.m., Ryan received a notice from federal investigators. And by sunset, news broke across every business channel. Hale and Vaughn accused of corporate fraud, potential arrest warrants issued. I stood in the empty hallway, the city burning orange beyond the windows, and whispered to myself, it's starting. That night, Ryan called me, meet me, now. His voice was desperate. The predator had become the prey. I met him at a quiet bar near the pier. He looked exhausted, haunted. Mira, he said, someone's setting me up. You're the only person I trust right now. I stared at him for a long time, my pulse steady. You trust me, I said softly. That's ironic, he frowned. What do you mean? I took a slow sip of my drink, leaned closer, and whispered, because you once told another woman the same thing before you ruined her life. His face paled. His eyes widened. Selena, he whispered, almost choking. I smiled cold, precise. I told you I'd take your piece. He tried to speak, but words failed, and in that silence I stood up, dropped an envelope on the table, and walked away. Inside the envelope were documents, every proof of his crimes, and a note that read, You built your empire on my ashes. Now watch it burn. As I walked into the rain that night, lightning flashed above the skyline, and in its reflection, I saw my face again in a puddle. Mira fading, Selena returning. But revenge wasn't complete. Not yet. There was still one last piece. The world had to see his downfall. When you spend years plotting revenge, you imagine that the end will feel like freedom. But freedom, I've learned, doesn't roar, it whispers. 3 days after I walked away from that bar, the world came crashing down on Ryan Hale. The morning news flashed his face on every major network. Corporate mogul Ryan Hale arrested in massive fraud investigation. his empire collapsed overnight. Investors fled, his assets froze, his name, once gilded in luxury and power, now trended alongside the words fraud, betrayal, and downfall. I watched it unfold from my apartment window, the city below alive with gossip. And yet, instead of satisfaction, I felt quiet. I had imagined this moment 1,000 times, but I never imagined the silence that followed. The rain hadn't stopped in 2 days. Seattle seemed to mourn him, or maybe it was cleansing itself of his corruption. Either way, I felt the storm belonged to me. 2 weeks later, I returned to Hale and Vaughn one last time, under the pretense of collecting personal items. The building felt haunted now, half the offices empty, lights flickering, the echo of lost ambition filling the marble halls. And there, sitting behind her desk, was Clara Vaughn. She looked different, thinner, paler. Her eyes darted up when she saw me. "Mira," she said softly, "you're still here." "I just came to say goodbye," I replied. She gave a brittle laugh. "Goodbye. You picked a strange time. Everything's burning." I hesitated, watching her tremble slightly. "You always knew it would, didn't you?" Clara sighed. "Ryan was reckless. I tried to control him, but I didn't think he'd drag me into it." She rubbed her temples. "They're investigating me too. They think I knew everything." I stepped closer, my voice cold. "Didn't you?" Her eyes snapped up, filled with guilt. "Who are you, really?" And in that moment, I realized something: she truly didn't remember me. To her, I was just another ghost in her long trail of victims. So I smiled faintly, just someone who believes in consequences. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on my couch, surrounded by the files, news clippings, and photos of what used to be my life. It was all over. Ryan was in jail awaiting trial. Clara's name was splashed across every news site. And me, I was free, or I was supposed to be. But the truth is, revenge doesn't end when your enemies fall. It lingers a shadow behind every quiet moment. 3 months later, I visited Ryan in prison. It wasn't closure I sought, it was clarity. He looked older, his arrogance stripped away, his hands trembling as he sat across the table. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes, not of me, but of himself. "Why?" he asked quietly. "Why did you do it?" I stared at him for a long time, then said, "Because you made me believe I wasn't enough. You took everything, my career, my sanity, my name, and handed it to someone else like it was a gift." He swallowed hard. "You could have moved on." I leaned forward. "I did. This is me moving on." He looked down, a faint smile curling his lips. "You destroyed me." "No," I said softly. "I just showed the world who you really are." He didn't reply. The guard came to escort him away, and as he stood, he turned slightly and whispered, "You've become just like me." For a moment, that thought cut deeper than I expected. Had I? Outside, the rain had stopped. The sky was clear, a rare thing for Seattle. I walked along the pier, the same one where everything began, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel the weight of him on my shoulders. But something inside me had changed. The fire that once fueled me had turned into quiet embers, not gone, just gentler. That's the thing about revenge. It consumes the parts of you worth saving until you either rebuild or vanish. 1 year later, I had moved to Portland, started working with a non-profit that helped women rebuild after emotional and financial abuse. It felt ironic at first, the woman who once sought destruction now teaching others how to heal. But maybe that's what real power looks like, the ability to turn your pain into purpose. One evening, after a support session, I stood by the mirror in my small office. I looked at my reflection, no longer Selena, no longer Mira. Just me, and for the first time in years, I didn't need revenge to define who I was. But as I turned off the lights, my phone buzzed an anonymous message. "You think it's over. You have no idea what's coming." My heart skipped. No name, no number, just those words. I stared at the screen, a slow smile spreading across my face. Maybe the past doesn't die easily. Maybe some ghosts don't want peace. and maybe, just maybe, I was ready for one last dance with the darkness. I whispered to the empty room, if it's a war you want, I'll finish what you started. Outside, thunder rolled again, the sound of the storm returning, and this time I wasn't afraid.